There's nothing more exhilarating than pointing out the shortcomings of others, is there?
This video was made possible due to those who support me on Patreon. I'd like to give a big shout out to patrons Christopher Spirit B, Conrad Truitt, Dan Ray, Eric Navarro, Flake, Frame by Frame, Joseph Abrams, Kristen Bennett, Kyle Kramer, Majum Wiebe, Mariah, Matthew Gay, Sophia Narwitz, and Stephen Dillon. Thank you all for your support. A hero's origin story is often in reference to the way in which they receive their superpowers and/or their main motivation for taking on their alter ego. In the case of Bruce Wayne Batman, most recent film adaptations skip over this origin, seeing as it is so well known by this point. The Batman is no different, the story beginning with Bruce Wayne having already been Batman for 2 years. However, I would argue that this character is not the Bruce Wayne nor the Batman we are familiar with. And, in fact, neither character truly makes an appearance in the film at all. Rather, the entire film is, in a sense, a sort of masked origin story, chronicling the trials and tribulations of a character I will refer to as Vengeance. We're first introduced to Vengeance as he saves a civilian from a gang of hoods. However, after dispatching and chasing the attackers off, the civilian cowers in fear from his savior. The significance of this interaction isn't brought to light until later, but cannot be understated. We'll come back to this. The film then establishes its main plot thread, Vengeance's hunt for the serial killer, the Riddler. And very quickly we see a distinct deviation from most adaptations of the character. Usually, the character is portrayed as demonstrating both halves of his identity. During the day, he is Bruce Wayne, billionaire, philanthropist, playboy, as both a means to aid Gotham via charitable contributions and alleviate suspicion of him being the Caped Crusader. At night, he becomes Batman, taking on crime in a much more hands-on manner. However, Vengeance has been a recluse for years, and it is evident that he doesn't like being Bruce Wayne. Even when he attends the police commissioner's funeral, he only does so to locate the Riddler. It is Alfred who urges him to, as he puts it, keep up appearances. And here we come to one of the most prominent complaints I've heard about the film, which is that Pattinson's portrayal of Bruce is lacking. But I argue those who make this critique are missing the entire point of the film. In contrast to Bruce Wayne Batman, a man who has found balance within himself, who has not necessarily dispelled his trauma, but harnesses it to help the people of his city in the most efficient and effective manner by playing the role he needs to play, both in the light and in the darkness, I see Vengeance as almost a coming-of-age, teenage version of the character, metaphorically speaking, of course. While his intention is to help the citizens of Gotham, crime has only been growing over the last 2 years. He wants to make a difference, but laments that he doesn't know how. Furthermore, rather than having mastered his fear and rage, he is at its mercy. Instead of simply dispatching criminals with ease, as he most likely could, he brutalizes them with such ferocity, we question, despite his capability, whether he truly is in control at all. In both of these cases, we see the traits of a confused young man, wanting to have an effect on the world but not knowing how, allowing his erratic emotions to control him as opposed to the inverse. And it doesn't end there. His reticence to appear as Bruce Wayne comes off as petulant stubbornness, a young man not willing to do what he finds unpleasant to help others. His turmoil following the discovery that his father was not as morally clean as he once thought, akin to a child having their black and white way of thinking be put into question. And, of course, he likes angsty music and doesn't know how to talk to pretty girls. This character is neither Bruce Wayne nor the Batman. Vengeance is in many ways still the scared little boy in the alley, lashing out at a world he doesn't have a firm grasp on, trying to weaponize the power of fear while not fully understanding it. To further flesh out the distinction between Vengeance and Bruce Wayne Batman, we can look to a similar depiction of the character in Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. While the film is a more traditional origin story, I find the most relevant period of this iteration's life to be him as a young man. Following the death of his parents, we catch up with Nolan's Bruce in his 20s, when he learns that Joe Chill, his parents' murderer, is to be paroled and conspires to murder him, only to have the chance ripped away from him. This phase of the character, if you will, is very similar to Vengeance. He is no longer a boy, but is filled with rage which he doesn't know how to process nor put to productive use. Instead of wanting to honor his family's legacy, or using it to help others, he despises who he is, stating that if he had his way, he would tear down Wayne Manor. There is even a scene in both films where he lashes out at Alfred, not recognizing him as a member of the Wayne family. In a crucial scene, he and Rachel are discussing Chill's death, when he states that sometimes revenge and justice are the same thing. Anyone who knows anything about the character knows that a statement like this is antithetical to what Batman stands for. But of course, this young man is not Batman. Not yet, at least. His anger prevents him from differentiating justice and revenge. He puts on a courageous front, yet is filled with fear. He knows he needs to do something, but doesn't know what that something is. It isn't until he is able to conquer his fear, focus his rage, and realize he must inspire hope in the citizens of Gotham that he can truly say, "I'm Batman." But the key moment I want to focus on is this, when he decides to forgo enacting his vengeance and tosses his gun into the harbor. He does not become the Batman, nor the Bruce Wayne we know in this moment. It is simply his first step on the path to becoming the hero Gotham needs. In comparison, vengeance may wear the cowl and cape, but like being of the same blood is not synonymous with being family, simply donning the costume does not make you Batman. He is, like we see in Nolan's iteration, still blinded by his own anger and fear, which makes him unable to see what effect his presence in Gotham is truly having. Late in the film, the Riddler is captured, and Vengeance is despaired to learn that he believes they are on the same side. At first glance, this might seem ridiculous. I mean, the Riddler is a traumatized orphan who dons a mask and manifests his anger by utilizing fear and extreme methods to rid Gotham of corruption, and while obviously not a one-to-one comparison, it isn't a stretch to see how what Vengeance was seeking to do in the city of Gotham could be misconstrued. It was Vengeance being blinded to the actual effect he was having on the city that not only led him to falling into each step of the Riddler's plot, but also stopping him from preventing the Riddler's masterstroke, in which he floods the city and his followers plan to assassinate the mayor. Though successful in saving the mayor's life, we see Vengeance face his lowest moment. Not only does his rage lead to him nearly beating one of the Riddler's followers to death, truly showing just how little control he has over his emotions, but when said follower states he is Vengeance, Vengeance finally understands. He believed he was turning fear against the criminals and instilling within the citizens of Gotham a sense of hope, but was in fact doing the opposite, stoking fear in the people he desired to serve, emboldening those he sought to defeat. There is a short exchange Vengeance shares with the soon-to-be mayor-elect at the police commissioner's funeral, where she laments that he, as a Wayne, isn't doing enough to help those in need. At first, I thought this was simply a humorous little jab, but come the final act of the film, it is put into a completely different context. His inability to move past his own rage prevented him from seeing the true effect he was having on the city of Gotham. In a way, I think it makes the use of Nirvana's "something in the way" so perfect. The "something in the way" being Vengeance himself, preventing him from accomplishing his goal in the city of Gotham. Upon coming to this realization, Vengeance proceeds to lead the people of Gotham to safety. No longer their source of fear, now their guiding light. In sharp contrast to the film's opening scene, where the civilian cowers in fear, a young woman reaches out for Vengeance, looking to him for comfort in her most dire moment. He gently puts his hand on hers, reassuring her she is safe, thus finally making him see how he can truly save the people of Gotham. But Vengeance does not become the caped crusader at this moment. Rather, like Nolan's Bruce tossing the gun into the river, this is simply the first step. And thus, in a sense, the film is not a Batman film at all. Rather, it is the story of a young man taking the first step to truly become him. I strongly suspect we will be seeing Vengeance make an effort to develop his persona as Bruce Wayne in the sequel, putting aside his petulance in order to use his family's legacy to give the people of Gotham a fighting chance against corruption. But of course, Bruce Wayne cannot fight every battle, and when that time comes, Vengeance won't be enough. But perhaps he just might be able to overcome his rage, find that balance within himself to become the hero that Gotham needs.